quite repulsive, but I think it's a very important film nevertheless, and maybe a sign of our maturity that we're finally getting the chance to see it.
Listen, it's not the dress.
The Australian Film Censorship Board has consistently refused to classify Salo, but the film received an R rating after the distributors appealed to the Film and Literature Board of Review.
Well, that's just a hint of what Salo's all about, but what do we do about films like this? Well, Senator McGauran, I was interested in the comments of the review board justifying its decision. It sums it up in one sentence virtually. It says, Salo presents us with the most stringent test to date of the basic principle that adults in a free society should be at liberty to see what they wish. Now, what's wrong with that?
Well, this is really saying that there are no censorship laws left. That's what the board is putting out to the community. Well, it's not part of the community standard at all. I'm sure the community would be horrified by it. At a time when parents think twice about sending their children down to the milk bar, here we have the most depraved movie in the history of movie making in the world, and that's recognised, the most depraved movie in the mainstream theatre with nothing but a lowly R rating.
But if it's only seen by a limited audience in an art house cinema, which is where it's scheduled for screening, is it really going to reach the sort of audience that you're so concerned about?
Well, it's not in an art house theatre. It happens to be set in Toorak Road, this movie, with no more than an R rating, which means anyone over 18 can get into it. Now, moreover than that, what the Film Censorship Board are saying is that we have no censorship left. By their own words, by the chairman, he says this is a good movie, quote unquote.
Keith Connolly, you were party to this decision, is that true?
Yes, it's a brilliant movie. It's also a repulsive movie, I agree.
So why did you decide that it should be screened in Australia, if it's a repulsive movie?
Well, that's not what the board is there to do, to decide what is not a repulsive movie. If we feel that the film does come within what we interpret to be the ambit of the established guidelines. It wasn't an easy decision, it was a very difficult decision, and no one pretends that the film doesn't come just within the upper limits of the R classification.
But Mr. Connolly, you have released the movie, and that's the bottom line, and you've released it with words such as, we thought it was a good movie, it has artistic value, it has integrity, and moreover, may I read from your report, that the basic principle that adults in a free society should be at liberty to see what they wish, as Mr. Couchman just repeated. So what you're saying, the message you're sending to the community, you're throwing down the gauntlet that there is no censorship law left. Well, I think you've just sugar-coated your comments, and you're going to find that there will be a community backlash.
Well, I think it's inevitable that when something as controversial as this, a decision is made, there will of course be a backlash. And I have found in a number of decades as a film critic and as a journalist and as a commentator on film, that it's very, very difficult to get agreement on questions like this.
Well, I don't think you're reading the community values at all. I think you're all out of touch. And quite frankly, I would match my community connections against yours any time, because really the background of the Film Review Board is nothing than journalists such as yourself for the Age newspaper. I think the whole board has to go back to basics. I do call for the sacking of the chairman. And in fact, the whole lot of you were unanimously in favour of this movie.
Mr. Connolly, before you answer that, I was interested in the report from the Censorship Board that decided by a majority that this film should be banned. And it made this decision on the basis of community standards. And I'm sure you're familiar with their report. It said, sadistic sexual acts upon captive teenagers, the brutal violence, plus the disturbing acts of depravity go beyond what is acceptable in terms of current community standards. Now, clearly, you and the other members of the review board disagreed with that, did you?
That is true. A minority viewpoint of that same censorship board held the view that we took, that the film did come within the R classification. I think it should be pointed out here that perhaps one of the principal reasons for arriving at this decision is that the filmmaker's purpose is clearly metaphorical, is clearly anti-fascist, extreme authority.
Yes, I noticed a majority view on the censorship board was that the film was a powerfully realised political statement.
Which is just an artistic fake, trying to beat up a story. Now, what about the victims of crime out in society? Have you ever taken them into consideration?